You're on.
We wish to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Wajik people of the Noongar Nation, and pay respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship with the land, as well as acknowledge the contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. Good. Okay, session 9. We have today, we've had pizza. Renee, you missed out on pizza. We have Michelle joining us today, who's going to run through how to be, how to use LinkedIn. I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to steal her thunder. And then we've got Ben Cohen, who's going to be talking about tech conferences. And then we've got some information on community contribution from Martin.
Hello, that's me.
And we've got someone else joining.
So we've got Tyler and Victor.
Cool.
Oh, nice. Hey. Hi, guys.
Hey, Tyler. Hello. You got video?
Yeah, I do have video. Do I want to turn it on? Possibly not.
That's all right. We were just checking.
We all know you're wearing an hoodie.
All righty. It's
Doesn't Victor have something to announce?
Oh, Victor, what's your big announcement?
I'm sorry, what announcement is this?
Well, aren't congratulations in order, Victor?
Are you referring to the nomination to?
I'm not referring to the nomination at all, no.
you sure he knows?
I'm referring
This is all very
to the promotion to Gold Ambassador.
Okay.
There's so many
yes.
great things in your life that you can't decide which.
No. No, you just haven't. I didn't know you know that. I received that about. Yes, I did get promoted to Gold Ambassador recently, and yeah.
Wow. Well done, Victor.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
Your work,
Yeah.
Victor, loving your work.
Brilliant. Does he get like a special hat or like a plaque or something?
It's huge. I mean, I presume they just coat his whole body in gold.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Well, I saw that I think you have to leave a little area at the base of the spine, so the person's
Well, they
That's a myth. That's not true.
I know it's not.
You can just fully coat him.
Well, they just send you a little swag kit, but they also give you opportunities to grow further and be part of your community a bit more through opportunities to learn further and also support the student ambassador program a bit more. So really grateful for that. Yeah.
Cool.
That's very cool.
What's in this swag kit? Is it? Do they clothe you from head to foot in an extra wear?
I haven't received it yet. They ship it at the beginning of the month, so yet to receive anything yet.
I see. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you, all dressed up in
Gold.
In your finery.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Oh, cool. That's me. Look. Can I seize control?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that then. Okay.
Who are you, Donald Trump? Stop it.
That's really. Okay. So I call this one Well Connected, Small Steps You Can Take to Increase Your Impact. And I would say that this has definitely increased my impact because I have done this presentation at Tech Ready in Seattle. I have done it in Techorama in Belgium. I'm going back to Netherlands to do it there. I've done it at GCAP. And so, yes, in terms of conferences, paying for you to go all over the world and talk, this little one about LinkedIn is one of the ones, well, is the most popular one, in fact, that takes me everywhere.
Wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I have some technical ones as well that also take me places, but this one is the most popular one.
Okay.
Cool. And so this is the scenario that made me first realize the value of LinkedIn. I was going to a why eat dinner, which had about, I don't know, 400 or 500 people there. I was quite new to my position as a ACS committee member. I might have been chairman or vice chairman at the time, and so I knew that I had to go around the room and, you know, kiss babies, shake hands, talk to people, you know, make an impact. And I do not like doing that with strangers. I find that very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, right.
And so I got there about half an hour early so I could scope out the whole place and judge what I was going to do, how I was going to introduce myself to strangers. And as I was standing there on the sidelines, I thought, I'm going to go for a sort of soft entry. What I will do is I will look for someone that I know, talking to someone that I don't know, and then I'll walk over to them, and the one that I know will introduce me to the one that I don't know, and it will not be as scary as just approaching strangers. So I saw someone and I went over and said, hi, Pat. And he said, hey, Michelle, do you know blah, blah? He is the CEO of big government things. So he was literally the most important person in the room. And I immediately started to feel a bit faint and wondered if it was too soon to run away. I was thinking my hands are sweaty. He's going to, you know, should I just, you know, say I need to go to the toilet and run now? Because I cannot, there is nothing in my brain. I have no, you know, elevator speech, you see? It was exactly like that to give to this guy, and I need to be impressive. And as all of this was going through my head, and the colour was already in my cheeks, this guy leans forward, shakes my hand and says, you're Michelle Sanford. I follow you on LinkedIn. I love your articles. And I was just so relieved because this guy already knew who I was. He knew what I was thinking. He already liked my ideas and my thoughts, and I had never met him in real life. And if I had tried to get an appointment with this guy, the head of, you know, all the government agencies, I never would have got past his secretary. I wouldn't have got into his building. It would have been impossible for me to make the kind of impact that I made without ever leaving my office. And I thought, this LinkedIn is definitely something. So I'm going to share with you all those same tips and tricks so that you can establish credibility from a distance, influence by volume, and access all areas. The influence by volume part is also because a lot of people are cynical about LinkedIn and they say, I prefer to meet people in person, which is fine. But how many people could you possibly meet in one day? If you were walking up and down the terrace, taking meetings with people, maybe you could have 8 meetings back to back. Maybe you could cut them short into half-hour meetings, do 16. You'd probably be dying by the end of the day. But it is unlikely that you would schedule that many meetings.
That's my standard day, to be fair.
Yeah, but it's... For me, though, if I make one post, I have a couple of posts that I made last week that have, you know, 7,500 views on them. And to get that many eyes on something, to get your ideas over, to be able to share a call to action or a link to a Microsoft learning page or something like that, you couldn't do that in that kind of volume, person to person. So yes, while I am moderately fond of some people, I am much fonder of LinkedIn. And the access all areas thing is yeah, it's not just that guy, the CEO, but it's people on the factory floor. It's, you know, it's developers, it's business strategists, it's people throughout all sorts of industries and in all sorts of positions that you can get to. And so you can use all of that to position yourself for the career that you want to achieve. So this is a little screenshot of my LinkedIn profile. What you see at the top of the screen there is the LinkedIn banner, which for most people, Phoenix, what does yours look like right now?
Mine doesn't look like much, really.
Yeah, it's just all like grey and blue swirly. Yeah, the default thing, which most people leave it as that. And
Oh yeah.
However, you have an opportunity with that banner to communicate without words who you are as a person. And as most people are spending less than 30 seconds on your profile, you want to catch their attention straight off. So what I have in mind, there's one of these cups with the Microsoft logo showing, which, you know, gives away a little hint that I work for Microsoft. There is a Surface book on there. On the screen is me at a conference at Microsoft Ignite speaking with 3 other of my girls, which says not only am I a subject matter expert and I speak with expertise, but also that I level up my community around me. And that's something I think is important communicating. Behind my head is a little robot that I have built that has a Azure Percept device in it, and so it does obstacle avoidance. That's one of the things that goes to conferences with me. You can see that when that circle of my head is in the middle, which it is on a different view. The picture of my head, even though I've got my hand there to look cool, you can recognize me from that picture. And the key there is if you were going for an interview at a new office and you were sitting in reception, you save embarrassment by the person that is coming to meet you if they don't have to go up to everyone in the reception and say, are you Fred? Or are you Fred? Or are you Fred?
I've done that so many times when I meet new people. Troll them on LinkedIn and go, right, okay, I know what they look like.
Yeah. And the same for if you're meeting people in coffee shops or networking at events. If you can recognize them, then you have a question, or they have a question that they can ask you already. Troy, my colleague for many years, had a picture of himself with his shiny reflective cycling glasses on and his cycling hat. And he thought he looked very cool. I thought he looked like any cool cyclist. And I'm using cool.
There are cyclists in the room.
Yeah.
And so that's a no-no.
Like you couldn't recognize it was him.
True.
And so, you know, like what's the point of that? That's fine. If you want to look cool on your Facebook, go right ahead. Or your Instagram, absolutely fine. Even on TikTok, absolutely fine. But LinkedIn, you're meant to be making it easy for your network to identify who you are and what you look like. So that picture has to be really good. So Phoenix and I were out there before taking pictures of her in front of the pretty coloured acknowledgement of country there, and you know it's good. So when you're in a cool place, George and I took some when we were at Flux because we're speaking at a conference together, so we posed for some together in front of their pretty wall. So when you are somewhere cool, take some pictures, take some selfies, and use them for your thing. Okay, then what we have is have my name. Fair enough. I have pronouns in there, which I think is helpful. Underneath, that's the headline. Now, generally, I say do not put your job title in there because your current job title is not who you are, and it isn't what you want to be, and it might not be the next role that you want. So if you put your job title, it kind of typecasts you as that thing. I do have my current job title in there. Reason being, that is my dream job and it is a super cool title, and so therefore I have put it in there. But prior to that, I used to just have like a developer advocate or tech evangelist, storyteller, director, stuff like that, things that I am, but not necessarily things that I am paid to do.
Can I just interject there, because I have worked for organisations that insist, that actually look at your LinkedIn profile and insist you have your job title there.
Well, that is very so 10 years ago of them.
So one of them was 2 years ago. So 3 years ago. One was 5 years ago.
Yeah, LinkedIn can be used like for consultants to do when they're pitching. They will put a list of the LinkedIn profiles of the people who work on the project.
I mean, I agree with you, Michelle. I think it's really bad form to have your job title in there. But ironically, I've just looked at mine, and mine is there.
I think it depends, right? I think
So
it's
is
more
mine.
like what Michelle just suggested, right?
But
it depends.
it is,
Depends what your personal tagline is, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to include your title?
And I did have before that, I had a tagline that was change the world or go home, which was a Microsoft tagline. And, you know, it was kind of like a quote that just kind of summed up why I was here. And I thought that was equally good.
I'll update mine now.
Yeah, so if you put your job title in there, it's kind of duplication, because further down where you have your work section, then you have that information. So it's kind of putting the same thing in twice, which is a bit of waste of real estate.
And, you know, I've also seen other people change it if they're looking for work. They'll actually put it in their tagline.
Looking for work,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
also
There's actually a status
you could
effect you can add to your profile picture as well.
You can as well, yeah.
You can say actively looking for work
Yeah.
or hiring or something like that.
Yes.
Nice improvement.
So yeah, so all of that, good. Then what have we got? The about section. So the about section, this is your elevator pitch. You see there are 4 lines that are visible there, and then there's 3 dots. So you could in fact click on the 3 dots to see a much longer about section that I have in there, but nobody ever does. So your top 4 lines need to be your elevator pitch, and they need to be real good. Everything, like, there is no room for being humble in those top 4 lines. Save that for lower down when no one's reading it. But here, they need to be the great things. And I would also say, if you want to save yourself and other people time, that needs to be the stuff that people can copy paste from your profile. They want to take your picture and they want to take that and use it for when you're coming to speak at events, or if you were just joining their company, or if you were, you know, whatever it was. Instead of having to ask you every time, can you provide me with a little bit of about you? You could just say, copy it from my LinkedIn profile, take the about section, use that, take the photo as it is, use that. Saves you a lot of time, and it also means that you do ensure consistently that those top 4 lines are up to date and sound good. So
It also creates a brand, right?
yes, they are also the 4 lines that you should say to yourself in the mirror each morning, because if you practice that, if you stand in front of the mirror and say, hey, my name's Michelle Sanford, I'm a TEDx speaker, a tech girl superhero, one of MBCV's 15 most influential women in games, and I work for Microsoft, it becomes something that rolls off the top of your tongue, and you don't feel embarrassed about introducing yourself with all of that brand, because you've just done it every single morning in front of the mirror. Whereas when you haven't, you're embarrassed to introduce yourself, to say anything cool about yourself, because you think this sounds like I'm being boastful.
Just to add to that as well, check it on mobile. So you might have created this for web. Check how it looks like on mobile, because it can look very different.
Yes. Then that section underneath that says featured, these are all like when I first started using LinkedIn way back in the day, like when LinkedIn started, you couldn't put color in there, you couldn't attach things in there. Whereas now you can attach photos of events that you've been to, of your, you know, I don't know, certificates, of you being awarded things, of you speaking at things. You can attach examples of your work if it's not confidential. You can attach videos in there, and it adds color to your profile. Now, if you're still using your CV, which in a lot of cases you don't have to anymore, because, for example, if you apply for Microsoft, you can apply with your LinkedIn profile. But if you are still using your CV is black and white, probably Times New Roman or Arial. It has no colour in it.
Comic Sans.
Well, that's Comic Sans that I'm using up there. Because Comic Sans is actually one of the most readable fonts. So, but I use it to look like handwriting on slides. But yes, it's going to be the same as the 200 other CVs in the pile in front of the person, the recruiter. And the other thing is, if you have tried to go fancy with it, you have tried to put colour and attach things and, you know, do loads of fonts, they might well send it back and say, we can't automatically upload this to our database because it's too fancy. So all of that effort's wasted. So I would say, make this your creative palette, show how glorious you are using this. Okay, quicker. So here's just some comparisons. This is a ghost, the first one. I normally would not accept connections from ghosts. I would assume it was a bot or someone that didn't exist. Jonathan Wade's my favourite one, really, because he has a blackboard filled with technical symbols. What that says about him is he is a technical teacher. Now, he is not. His job is a second level manager to the CSAs. However, in his heart, that is what he is, a technical teacher. He wants to spread technical knowledge to the community.
He's
So
actually a qualified teacher too. He is actually, yeah.
Yeah.
he is. He is, but that is not his current job title. But that's what I'm saying. Don't make it about your current job title. Make it about who you are. And Anto, yeah, she is backed by the might of Microsoft there. In case you missed that, she has put the logo on there in case you don't realise that's the Microsoft campus. Show your work. So you can see there that IBM stuff is, yes, back before there was colour in the world, when the world was black and white. Whereas now I have a lot of stuff that I can attach, and so I try to attach stuff under each job to show evidence of my work and stuff that I've been doing.
That's a good idea.
The impact I've been making to like add colour to it. And even before you get a job, like there are plenty of opportunities to volunteer. So in there's a lot of mentoring for She Codes, for other coding groups. There's a lot of advisory boards that I do, and all of those things say that I'm a trusted advisor. They say that I share my expertise, that I'm calm under pressure, that I help others level up, that I give my time to community, you know. And so even though none of those are paid jobs, they are all increasing the evidence as to who I am and why I am worthy. There's a couple up there that are church related, which I think is a bit of a risky business in Australia, given that we are kind of an agnostic country, and where there is mention of religion, it's generally ScoMo diverting taxpayers' money to super churches and stuff like that, or yes, priests in questionable circumstances. However, I was kids' church leader. They brought me their babies every week for 2 hours, and I took care of them. I think it says that.
I think it's to consume.
I think it says that I am trusted by parents and beloved by babies. And to do that for 2 hours in a room full of them is a very high pressure scenario. And I did that. And so therefore I have that in there because, yeah, I think it speaks to the amount of pressure I'm able to endure.
Parent in it. That covers it off, doesn't it?
Yeah, parent. Parent and my kids are alive.
I have my degrees in there, but so what? Because that was like 20 years ago. Who even cares what I did back then? I can't even remember what those were about. But you can demonstrate a continuous learning mindset with your Microsoft certifications and other online learnings that you can do for free. And so add those in, put those on, and I have plenty of vouchers until end of September. So if you want to do more, and definitely you can get, you already got yours, haven't you? You want to get AI fundamentals, then you can absolutely get that. And if you want to actually go up, AI associate or data science engineer, you can also get those, although the data scientist one is super hard, but the AI engineer one, if you do AI fundamentals, like you could do both, like really, like do both before end of September. I will help you.
I might get back into that.
Go on. So this
Sorry, I
is,
didn't mean to scoff.
yes, you should.
Well,
This
scoff.
is
We'll get back into
Accelerator,
it.
in
Both.
case you're not a member, already joined. We did startups this morning, that I put the recording on the playlist. Oh, I do want to show this real quick. Whenever I say that recruiters use AI to get rid of the first round of people before they put you in front of interviews, the recruiters always deny it. but they do. And even if they don't, what they do is they pass it to offshore people who have a checklist of things. That checklist is generally coming from the job description that's advertised on the website. And so that side is the job description, and I've highlighted some of the skills that they're asking for there. On the other side, so on this side, the responsibilities and qualifications, that came from a job description advertised for a security customer engineer. On the other side, that comes from Jess Dodson's LinkedIn profile, and Jess Dodson is a security engineer with Microsoft. And if you look at them, you can see how many of the things that they asked for are in the skills section of her LinkedIn profile. So you can do yourself a favor by matching those things up. You absolutely do not need to match all of the requirements and qualifications asked for on there. For my current job, I matched virtually none of them, including the willingness to move to Sydney. And if you could meet 100% of the criteria on there, then in fact you would be very bored in that job. It's not going to stretch you at all because you can already do it all. So you should not be applying for jobs that you can meet the criteria. Apply for jobs that you meet, that you think you could make a difference in, that you think you could do something. There is also, yeah, there's a lot of Microsoft ones in there. And if you add those all in, that's good. Definitely add the Microsoft ones in there. You can also do these little skills tests that you can get blue ticks for. I would say if you search the internet, you will find the questions and answers for those, and I recommend you do that because I think they're nonsense. But I also think that hiring managers pay attention to it, so go ahead and get those blue ticks.
I think it'd be interesting to get a hiring manager in and do one of these sessions. So like a flip to this, right?
Yeah, and I have been in calls where I do my bit and then there's recruitment things.
Yeah.
And they always deny that they use AI, but in fact it's like, well, all I'm saying is you check that people match the criteria, and surely you do.
Even if they're doing it themselves, they're still checking if it matches the
Yeah.
criteria, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as their hiring managers, it's still artificial intelligence.
Yeah, but it's that fine line between being objective and subjective, right? Like, I mean, that's what I always like.
Yes, the AI is objective and the hiring
That's what I'm
managers
saying, humans are not.
Yes.
Correct.
Although not in all cases, because I did just do a talk last night where I talked about how Amazon thought they were going to remove the bias from the recruitment game by taking the humans out and having it done by a tool. However, they used their back catalogue of all the hires and all the previous applications. And as they mostly hired white men, the machine learning learned from that white men were the better candidates.
So
And therefore
that's what it started selecting.
it dismissed all the women candidates. Yeah, they got rid of that tool once they realised what it was doing, but the bias doesn't always come from the live humans. Sometimes it comes from humans
trained
historically.
AI.
Someone who trains the AI, what their biases are, gets written.
Correct.
into the
No,
bias.
what the data was
The
biased.
data, that's
So
what you put to
the
build
years
it.
and years and years
That's
of
right.
data. Yes.
Yeah. So it was,
Exactly.
it was biased. The data was biased,
Yes.
essentially.
Yes. Exactly. And humans are lazy, so they didn't clean that data.
Correct.
What you got to do is put a bit of weighting in there.
This is the other thing that I think is super useful. On your CV, you generally put two references at the bottom. Those are the names, phone numbers, and email addresses of someone you previously worked for. Ideally, they're asking for the person you have just worked for. And if you are leaving that person, it might not be in the best of circumstances. And so that's hard, that's uncomfortable. So maybe it's someone before that, but maybe you've been working for that same someone for a couple of years and nobody else remembers you. That's difficult. For me, I came from Belgium. If I put those ones on there, they would be calling someone out of their time zone, out of their language. And a company that in Belgium is only allowed to say, yes, this person worked for us within these years and that was her job title. That's all you could get from them in terms of reference. So
Wow.
it's not really useful. Here, I think I have about 60 recommendations on my profile, and they are people that worked for me. people that worked with me, people that managed me, people that were my customers, people that were my vendors, people that were my colleagues, like a whole 360 degree. And generally, I would ask them when I'd done something good. So maybe I just delivered a project and they were like, your work on that project was amazing. You came in under budget, under time. Everyone on the team was happy. I wish there was something more I could do for you, but unfortunately, there's no more money in the budget to give you a bonus. And I'd be like, well, why don't you write me a recommendation on LinkedIn? Because asking for the recommendation at the time you have done something good and they want to thank you for it means you will get a recommendation that is talking about something concrete that you have done and done well.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're asking for a reference years after you worked for someone, they probably can't remember that. So when people...
I still get requests now for somebody that I worked with at Chevron 6 years ago.
Yeah, I have a couple
And you
of
haven't
people
responded
like
to mine
that.
either.
No,
That's a joke.
I would respond and say don't hire them. No, no.
I actually used this extensively when I emigrated from the UK to New Zealand and then from New Zealand to here. Very powerful.
Yeah.
So I think what Michelle is saying is you know, it's the right thing to do and ask for it at the time, not later, because, you know, we're all the same, right? Kind of.
I think this has morphed though, because originally, because I remember using this in the early days of LinkedIn. That was probably version 4, what it was. And it was always very much quid pro quo thing. I'll give you a recommendation if you give me a recommendation.
Oh,
I'll give you a recommendation. if you give me- So that I think this has changed now, and it now has value.
it was, yeah, no. So, yeah, I did have one applicant where I say it's like a blockchain, I had one applicant and I thought his recommendations all looked a little bit questionable. And I went to each of the people that had recommended him and saw that each of them
Yeah.
also had a reciprocal recommendation,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
they were like identical recommendations. And I was like, so these people are all sort of buying and selling
Yeah.
recommendations.
Yeah, exactly. And
You can get to
I think
choose
that happened
though
a
which
lot earlier in-
recommendations you want to
in,
show
things.
as
Yes.
well, which I think is
10
pretty
years
neat.
ago.
And you can order them as well.
Yes, and you can send them back.
You can
So
yeah,
you can
correct.
say, can you edit this? Because I did have one the other day where the guy told me that I was responsible for, you know, introducing Microsoft to Australia, and without me, there would be no Microsoft in Australia. And he-
Wow, I had no idea.
I know, and I was like, I really wasn't in the country at the time.
What's an even better recommendation? Surely. You weren't even here. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I
No
didn't.
idea.
I must admit, I was blown away a few times by people who've been
Yeah.
the authentic and
Oh,
some stuff which
it
you
makes
just
me
like
cry.
blew you away. We're like, my God, I didn't realise that you felt that way, right?
On a day where you feel really sad and worthless, if
Go
you
and read
read
it.
through your recommendations,
I'm with you.
you will be crying by the end of it. And the other thing is, some of those girls wrote me recommendations when they were help desk agents working for me in a Romanian or Czech Republic call centre.
Oh, wow.
And they're so sweet, and they're just like, oh, Michelle was the best boss we ever had, and it was adorable. However, now they are CEOs of companies. And so you see their name and their current job title, and them saying Michelle was the best person I ever worked for. So yes, definitely do it when you're young, and don't think that those don't mean anything, because those people will grow up as you grow up.
Oh, you have 5. I've got 2. Try harder. To be fair, one of them is from Michelle.
Now, you just have to do 3 things each day. Like something, comment on something, and share something. But the things that you like, comment, and share on should be relevant to your field. So I should not be doing that in the, for against real estate posts or things, because then I will start seeing more real estate stuff, and that will flood my stream. If I want to attach my credibility to the expertise of someone in my field, I need to comment on someone's post, and I need to give them the opportunity to share more expertise. So I find someone top of their field, I comment on their post, asking them, have they got any other podcasts or books that they would recommend to me? They will respond to that. They will love that. they will then accept my connection request, and we will be best buddies forever after that. But people will associate us. They will assume that I know that person really well because we are first level connections, even though logically in their mind they know that Michelle has like 10,000. They will still make that assumption.
Yeah.
So yes, do that. When you share something, the other thing is try and put a picture on there. And if you're sharing someone else's article or post, share it with the comment above it about the top 3 takeaways you got from that post, so that you're not just clicking share, you're adding value into your LinkedIn feed. It's not just about LinkedIn. You can also do the same on GitHub. You know, that's my GitHub profile, and that's Clarissa teaching how to make a GitHub profile that is more fancy than just the normal one. And there we go.
Should I have a GitHub profile?
You can absolutely put more than code on there. There's a lot on
Yeah,
there
you
that
can
is
do a ranking.
documentation.
I've got nothing to put in
You-
there.
I can show you.
There's some
I
very
could
cool
show you a lot.
animations you can put in.
There is a lot you can put
It's the
in.
next
I'll show
level.
you.
I was a bit brave
Recently, some politicians put a
and messaged
bill
someone
on GitHub
in Melbourne, because we're going to be in Melbourne week after that.
because they want to comment.
They've left me unread. So I'm kind of, but I've had content in different ways.
Hello.
With her and her podcast thing.
Or you
but
can make them a
Maybe,
positive
maybe it's
public. Yeah.
just it's too much, but
How do you speak? How do
yeah,
you-
I was curious to see whether
might
she
find
might
that
respond or not.
Oh, they put it on their
Um,
Twitter feed.
Let's-
They tweeted it.
Right,
Oh,
gotcha. Okay.
Yes, MVP, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Where's that picture from, Ben?
But she's. So it's no biggie. I just.
You see how everybody looks so different after MCAS?
I would might try and find his
I didn't do it
email
either.
address as well. I can have contact details and try
yeah.
that. Because yeah, I had one.
It's a good picture though.
I liked it.
I like it.
Me and Grant got one
And I
together.
spoke to her about it,
Right.
all of this, and I've been sending her LinkedIn messages and emails. and she
But they made it really hard to get them afterwards. They didn't actually send them to you. You had
Yeah,
to
she's just
find a button on the
But
thank you
it's
email
it's
from
a wasted
MCAS.
opportunity for her
and then go
because
to that
she'd
site
spoken
and then
about
download
before, We recorded it and
Yeah.
her.
So that's why I posted about it in our banter chat because nobody I knew
Yeah,
But
was able to
also
find them.
maybe try it.
So we went to a kickoff in Sydney and they had a booth, LinkedIn were there, and they had a booth where you could have a professional photo taken.
I'll take that.
How long did you line up for?
Yeah.
And what
Like
about-
I looked
Good
and
to
there was
see,
the line.
Yeah, that's the same with me. I was like,
I did it on the first morning and me and a couple of other Perth people were hanging out near the coffee cart that was next to that booth.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, right.
And me and Grant were like, oh, there's no one lined up. So yeah, we just walked over, said hi,
Yeah.
put my bag down, put my jacket on and took a photo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she's
I actually wore my jacket and that particular shirt for this photo
She realised.
because I knew I was going to try and get one of these photos.
Cool. How we doing for time?
You missed my bit.
I just gate crashed. Have I missed Ben's bit?
No, it's
No,
Ben's
Ben's
bit.
now.
There was something.
How am I going
That's why I'm here.
Oh, Adrian.
That and I've got to wait till.
I'll ask you to do this.
Yeah.
Is there any questions in the chat or?
Thanks, that Michelle. I shall do my best to update my profile.
Any questions from people online?
No questions from me. Thanks, Michelle.
Cool, Victor. Thank you.
Ben. Session though, Michelle.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Turn my camera on as well so people can see me. Sat right there. Oh, right. Well, people on the video can see me because you can't see me on the room video. Yes. So take control. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you about tech conferences. There's been quite a few happening lately, and they're an important part of any kind of tech career. But to be honest, they're a part of any career. There are conferences happening for all kinds of career path. So there's something that no matter where you're kind of working, there will always be something to go to be with other people in your industry, other community members, things like that.
And now increasingly in person.
Yes. Now we are coming back to in-person conferences. However, there are also precautions to take, some of which did not work for me recently, unfortunately. So yeah, but I'm one of the people I've actually got in the photo of is one of my go-to people for the best precautions for going to conferences, because she has been going to conferences consistently for the last 2 years since they've started coming back in person, is yet to catch COVID.
Aha.
Yeah, but she's gone all out, like like personal CO2 meter, proper silicon N95 filter mask, whole works.
Hazmat suit.
So, what do you get from going to conferences? So you get a couple of different things, and depending on the conference you go to, you'll get these in different amounts. So you can learn new things from conferences, particularly if you go to workshops and things like that. You get news and updates from different people. So usually the ones with like big keynote speakers, they'll usually be talking about what's happening in their business or in their industry quite a lot. You go there to share ideas with each other. So occasionally you'll get panels, which are kind of these philosophical questions like arguing, do we go with microservices or monoliths or things like that. Ideas like DevOps came from this kind of thing, where people were having discussions about how do we better develop code. And DevOps was coined at a conference in 2010 by a panel of speakers who were kind of thinking about that question. One of the best things you can actually get from it is networking. You find people, you meet other people who share your interests, work in the same industry, and you can really make a lot of really strong connections. I've got a bunch of friends who I've met through conventions around the world, lifelong friends that I still, like I met in like 2007, 2008, and still am really good friends with now. I talk to like most days. The other thing you can get is getting involved. So particularly with community-based events, you can really get involved, volunteer, do stuff with other people, and or you can even go as far as speaking or even running a conference. So you can get involved with the committee and start helping run conferences. And of course, there is always swag, free stuff. People always have free stuff at conferences. It's kind of one of the reasons some people go to these things.
I always have T-shirts to wear if I didn't go to conferences.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, like I remember seeing posts on Reddit from people who go to a video game convention called PAX, and they have their hotel bed is full of all the free stuff they've gotten from game companies. And it's the entire reason they go to PAX is to just go get stuff.
And I know people who go to conferences with an empty suitcase.
Yep.
Specifically for that reason.
Yeah, my friend Andy does that.
This is just a different world, right?
Yeah.
Take an empty carry-on, because carry-ons get a fair bit of swag in that.
Yeah.
True that.
Oh, too far.
What, fill all your water bottles with the socks? Is that the thing?
Why are they not going backwards?
I did get 4 pairs of socks at MTC Melbourne.
Socks.
It's all about packing
Oh
efficiently.
no, this is right.
Cool ones too, too tweeny though.
They are swish. We need some Azure socks.
I got some of them the other day.
Yeah.
They're so good.
What?
See how they keep them to themselves. No sharing.
So
Who's they? Who's
What are
they?
you wearing?
Yeah, true.
Azure hoodie.
Yeah, but socks, mate. Socks.
Like functional something.
I'm loving these slides, by the way.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So yeah, they're important to your career because they allow you to be a learn-it-all. Like you can, like one of the best things you can do is go sit in a bunch of workshops or panels that you have no idea about, and learn something new. Like you can walk out with a bunch of notes on like maybe data and AI, if you attend one of Michelle or Gia's sessions, or working in tech and avoiding burnout or HR issues, because those are the kinds of things that people will talk about there.
BizTalk.
Yeah, nobody talks about BizTalk anymore. You can go to socialize, like, so quite often there will be some social events around a conference. So usually they end up at the pub. So that tends to be the Australian way. But also there's like tables around lunch. You can just walk up to other people and just say, hi, I'm Ben. I work for Microsoft. How you going? And start talking with them. So that's a really great way to meet new people, to build your network, and like Michelle was saying before, increase your LinkedIn network, and they may know you through reputation. You can keep up to date with learning new news about products, particularly with vendor conferences. You can also go to teach. You can go to show other people some of the things you've learned in your journey yourself. And that's the thing, no matter how far you are in your journey, you've learned something. You've learned, and you may have learned something in a different way, or learned something new about something that is useful to other people. So there's always opportunities to teach other people things that you've learned. And of course, you can give back to your community through running events, through volunteering for events, through just talking.
I've heard that you can also go and get hired.
Yes, you can meet people who would potentially hire you. So there's different types of conferences that you would encounter in the tech space. So there's vendor conferences, which are things like Microsoft Build, Microsoft Ignite. There may be conferences for other cloud providers that once per year that they have, and usually these are things like we have big announcements, we have new products to show you, a little bit salesy, but also a little bit showing off new and interesting features. There's community-based conferences, so things like DDD Perth, which are all entirely community-run. They have a committee of community members who volunteer to do that, don't get paid, and run the conference for the year. And then it's usually staffed by other volunteers who want to just work on the day. And usually these community-based conferences tend to be a bit cheap and cheerful. They are nice and easy to get into. They try to make them as accessible as possible. They're not there to make money off you. And they're spoken by people within the community. So yeah, there's industry conferences, which is usually not run by a singular company. They'll be run by a group of companies with a shared interest. So you get things like DEF CON, which is a security industry conference. That's sponsored by RSA, Checkpoint, security vendors who will pay to have that conference. They'll pay for floor space, advertising rights, but that brings an entire industry of people together with a shared interest. And then there's also sales conferences, which are pretty much a partner, vendor, that kind of level will invite you along to sit you down, talk about a product for an hour or two, get your morning tea, get your lunch, get some free stuff to make you remember that. I still have a Verada bottle opener at home from one of them. Learned about Dynamics that day. It was great. But they're purely for the sales push. It's all about marketing, not really about teaching and ideas. It's more about, here's a product, isn't it great? Here's how we can help you implement that. So yeah. So there's a couple of different things you can do with the tech conference. Basically, the basic one is attend. You can buy a ticket, you can go and enjoy your day. You get to go have a coffee, meet other people, go see a couple of panels, go to a workshop, and at the end of the day, very sore and tired, head home and be done.
There's a significant difference in price between those types of conference that Ben mentioned before. So, for example, you know, the NDC conferences, it's thousands of dollars for you to attend for 3 days. But those conferences, they don't tend to market at you as individuals, they market at your companies and say, why don't you send some of your staff along in order to increase their personal development, professional development.
Yep.
But
and that would be an industry conference. So
yeah.
similar to DEF CON would be, thousands of dollars to attend.
But PAX, I mean, PAX is quite affordable. You can buy just like a 1-day pass for PAX, and that's quite affordable. But the volunteering thing is really it's really a good way if you can't afford it. So all of those conferences, even the super expensive ones, will look for volunteers, and they do mostly accept people who are students or early in career people. And then you get to attend the conference, you get to see some of the sessions, you get a nice t-shirt. Ben has some nice t-shirts for volunteering at things.
I have one of those yellow t-shirts up in the corner there. That's not me. Yeah, somehow there is never a photo of me at PAX, like, because I'm usually running around fixing something. When I was an enforcer, I was actually one of the what we call lieutenants. So our job was to, on behalf of Penny Arcade Expo, have the authority to go fix major problems. Like, there is a line now wrapping around the entirety of Melbourne Convention Centre. How do we make this not a fire hazard? Things like that. I've never seen a photo of me at PAX. Unless I've actually asked someone, can you please take a photo of me? So that's actually one of my friends who was directing people into the queue room on the first day of PAX 2014. Volunteering is a really great way of experiencing a convention or conference, because you'll only have to work part of the time. They don't usually make you work the entire time. So you can get to see some of the panels and things like that. You usually get a free shirt, or at least an armband or something like that to say you're a volunteer. And you get to see some of the behind the scenes of how it all works and fits together. And also you can interact with things like the committee or organising members to see how that works. So you can also take a step in that direction to start helping organise a convention. So I've helped organise a couple of conventions. I helped organise Perth Games Festival one year as the president of Let's Make Games. I was helping organise PAX for a couple of years as well. The other way you can get involved with conventions is actually look for a call for speakers and become a speaker. Submit an idea for a what are they called?
They say call for papers or
call for sessions.
Whereas I don't know why they don't say call for content, because CFC just rolls off the tongue a lot more than CFP to me. But
call for content, call for presentation.
CFP
is what they have.
Yeah, so putting in an abstract of what your talk will be. So you describe it, just you put in a description of this is what I'm going to talk about. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's the things I'm going to discuss, and that you kind of have to try and tell a bit of a story because that abstract will be what you're judged on for whether you get to be a speaker or not.
So there's a website called cfp.com, which is increasingly getting a list of all the CFPs that are produced as they come up. So you go there and you can find a CFP that you can submit to. And on there,
so Michelle and Jay must be gold stars for this, right? To be selected for the ones that you're going to. So
we're doing very well this year, I have to say.
Yeah, right, okay.
But it's not, I've had years where I put in what I thought were really great ones, and they were rejected left, right, and centre.
Yeah, right.
You go, hey, I've made it. No.
Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it?
And that's the thing. Like, don't worry if your talk doesn't get accepted. It's okay. Like Michelle was saying, 1,000 people put in talks for NDC Oslo. Only 100 got through.
Yeah.
I think DDD we had
they had like 250 or so, and there were only like 50 slots.
DDD, I am not on there for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's just like.
Neither of the Robs are on there either this year.
What will I do? Luckily, I've commandeered 2 stands, so.
And the other,
Busy enough.
and the other thing there is
Apologise, take that.
I know. Yeah, G is everywhere.
and the other thing there is to use something like Sessionize.
I use Sessionize.
So
That's my
use
go-to.
Sessionize because then you can create all your content and and what your speaker profile is and all that sort of stuff, and you can use that. And a lot of the big tech conferences, you can submit directly from your Sessionize profile straight into the CFP. So if you've got a bunch of if you've got a bunch of speaker things that you've done before, like title and abstracts and that sort of stuff, you can just click a button and submit it straight into the.
And if you have ideas for talks, you think, oh, I've never seen someone talk about this subject before, go put it in Sessionize and then build it out. You can then go back and build it out and into a proper abstract to then
Learn how to
submit.
do the thing once you've put the abstract in, isn't what you're saying?
Oh, no one ever has. I mean, me as a speaker content person, I only ever start writing my slides 3 days before.
Yeah.
And my demo the day before, right? What?
George and I are going to GCAP, which is PAX week, but it's for the indies. We're talking about live ops, Azure live ops, and I've written the framework for that presentation this week, but by which I mean I've put a title on each slide saying what is the topic for this one. But neither of us knew anything about Azure live ops when I put that in. We will know about it before we teach it.
It's a great way of learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
I find it's a great way of learning. Just
And
submit
that-
a presentation and then you got to learn it.
Yeah, that week is called Melbourne International Games Week.
Yes.
So there are a whole bunch of events happening that week. What have we got? So going to a conference, always be prepared. Make sure you've got water because you need, and I'd recommend having a decent drink at least every half hour. Keep you because you're going to be either in warm areas with lots of other people, particularly during Australian summer, or you're going to be in heavily air-conditioned rooms which dry you right out. So that avoids a lot of problems with your thing. As we say in the enforcers, hail hydrate. Bring a pen and notebook because you never know when you hear something that's really great and think, I've got to take that, I've got to write that down. So have a notebook open in your phone, traditional pen and notebook, have a tablet which you can write on or sketch on.
Also, your laptop power doesn't last forever.
Yes,
Sometimes.
definitely.
Have a backup.
Yep. Hand sanitizer. These days, hand sanitizer, spare mask, things like that, always. Self-care, so have in your bag some tissues, Panadol, Nurofen, that kind of thing to stave off anything that you may come down with during that day. And also take some snacks. I did actually have socks there for some reason earlier today, but my wife was like, why didn't you say snacks? Why didn't you say food? Like, why'd you go to socks first?
Because the air conditioning is so cold that you need 2 pairs of socks on, is that?
Well, no, I mean, particularly in summer and particularly with long conferences which are multi-day, having a spare shirt or a spare pair of socks in your bag to be able to change halfway through the day is the best thing.
But I'd also advocate do a bit of research on the venue because one great example of that is Microsoft Inspire. The last time it ran in person, the big one was in Orlando, and to get from one end of the conference center to the other end of the conference center was a 40-minute walk. So if you're planning out how you're going to walk from one place to the other, and then you want to make sure you got a comfy pair of shoes.
I always pack a jumper because the air conditioning is just shocking, and I take a small battery as well for my phone. Yeah, because one, charge your own phone, 2, you'll make a friend for life if they've got a flat phone and you charge it for them.
So the dark sunglasses so that if you're in a presentation and it's not enjoyable, you can fall asleep.
The last PAX I went to, they had in Melbourne Convention Centre had installed vending machines full of mobile phone battery chargers. So, and they all come at least partially charged out of the box.
Yeah.
So and they were empty by the end of the weekend.
And cords and stuff.
Yeah, extra charging cords, extra battery backups, the whole works. So yeah, that was some really great stuff. Should probably wrap this up. Swag is awesome. Swag is really good. Swag is on the back of my laptop all over the place, and on my my jumper and my shirt are both from conventions. When dealing with people who are giving out swag, please be polite. They are often there for a very long day, dealing with a lot of people. Saying thank you and please is the best thing they'll ever hear.
Also, just to add to that, certainly on some of the bigger stands, you'll find that they're staffed actually by people who don't work for that company. So just because you go up and go, oh, I want to know about this, and they don't know the answer, doesn't mean you can be an arsehole.
Such as student ambassadors.
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, like, they'll hire in marketing companies to help.
Yeah.
To help.
Beef
right?
bunnies.
Yeah. So they may not know the answer to your question, so don't be an arse.
I think at those like trade conferences, definitely there's a lot of like beef bunnies.
Yeah.
Which definitely do not know. But more and more are like our community ones and industry ones. It is people from the company, but it is also student ambassadors and all of that.
Yeah.
And if you are rude to the people, you are being rude to people who work at that company. And if you were thinking of getting a job there,
They will remember.
Yeah.
Yes. Also engage with them. Like you're getting something from them. Just talk with them about their product. Be interested in their product. Ask questions. Be honest if it's not really something that you'd be interested in, or and things like that. Do what they ask. So for certain booths, you have to put down your email address or sign up for a learning course, which is what our usual trick is. And don't be greedy. Just don't go and go, oh, these are free. Cool. I'm going to take a big handful of them, put them in my bag and walk away. So don't do that. It's, yeah. Conferences that we have around us. So for Perth, I'm not sure if there's anyone.
I would just say, except on the final day of the conference. If
Yeah,
the final day of the conference, and there's loads of swag there.
Oh yeah.
If you can go up and say, can I have a
Because they want to get rid of it because they don't want to put it back.
But again, you ask them. You don't
Ask
just
politely,
walk up and
be nice. And usually if you've engaged them before, they'll be, hey, I remember you. You're really nice. Here, have a whole bunch of shirts. So the conferences that we have here in Perth, I'm not sure if anyone not from Perth is on the call. Do we have anyone?
Yeah, we've got Tyler.
Tyler, where's Tyler? Canberra. I don't know of any in Canberra. But yes, DDD Perth also has sister in.
Ones go to Canberra. The security ones go to Canberra.
That's right, yeah. They also have Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Adelaide for DDD, which are run by similarly minded people. Latency is a Perth one, cloud native conference, really great. I didn't update the picture. So that one up the top is actually Michelle on stage at Latency last year. The bottom one is David Neal, Reverend Geek, doing a sketch note with his sketch notes from DDD Perth. Industry, we have Microsoft Build and Ignite. So Microsoft runs those once a year each, usually at opposite ends of the year. So we'll have Build in about May. Ignite, I think, is October this year, late October. So Build is the developer one. Ignite is the more infrastructure one. Yao Perth, which regularly brings international guests down to Perth and talks. I haven't seen Yao lately, actually.
A couple of years, actually.
Yeah. UX Camp is a great one for if you're into web dev and user experience. My friend Simon is an organizer for that. And there's the Whitblood Tech Plus conference as well, which, Michelle, are you guys doing that this year?
I am not on the Whitwork committee.
Oh.
Last year, Jonathan brought a table.
He did. That's right, I remember.
Cheryl.
Cheryl
that's
brought a
right,
table,
Yep.
but Jonathan was there and you were there.
Oh, was it?
And a bunch of other people were there. And it was a really nice conference. We
It
learned
was
a
very
lot.
good.
Yeah, that one's a Women in Tech WA conference.
They do the right thing and
yeah.
they
Really good, really good.
pay a lot for get the best in
Yeah, it was a really good conference, that was.
international speakers.
And
Yeah.
he's always on stage as well. That was good.
I'll try and get a table.
So the actual reason I did this talk, and this talk was actually meant to be a build update originally. So here's build update in 2 minutes. So Microsoft Build ANZ highlights. That should be 2 things every developer should know, not 10 things, because I've only got 2 things in this one. Come on, keep moving. My Teams is not behaving.
All container apps.
Container apps. So container apps is a new feature that has been added to the Azure catalog. It enables you to run microservices and containerized applications on a completely serverless platform. So this includes multi-container applications and things like that. It is kind of a managed Kubernetes. So AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service, is what we call managed Kubernetes. So that manages the Kubernetes layer on top of a set of VMs that you have in your environment. This actually removes both of those things and manages both of them in, and you just deploy your containers and define how your container fits together. So how each of the containers is meant to interact with each other and things like that. Makes it very simple to be able to run small applications on Azure in the cloud. It's available in Australia East region, includes Azure Virtual Network integration, so you can actually attach these to your network, talk with other things in your network. Supports managed identity, so you can interact with other Azure resources. Does support for HTTP and TCP health probe, so a previous iteration of this only did HTTP, so if you had applications that weren't web apps, it wouldn't work. Also includes easy auth to do authentication authorization for your applications. Has real-time log streaming, so those things that you'd usually have logging set up for, like you'd have a logging container in your Kubernetes cluster. This has it built in to allow you to see all those logs in your resource, and container access, console access to your containers that you're running. So you can actually log on, interact with them, see if there's anything wrong. So this makes it very easy to do.
And is that PaaS or SaaS?
This is PaaS.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, if you have a small API that you want to run, you just run it as a container app. It'll scale, same as what Kubernetes would. So yeah, basically Kubernetes without the Kubernetes, which is really great. I've been playing with it, trying to run my Factorio server on it lately. And highlight number 2, which I know Vicky will really love, Power Apps Express Design.
I think I showed this, didn't I? Did I show this? I know I showed it to someone.
I probably, maybe, I don't know.
I'm sure. Okay, go on.
It's the one where you can like literally note down your design.
I'm yet to play, but
We had it on lowdown.
it's something I will play.
Oh, was it the lowdown I showed it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on lowdown.
Yeah, sorry, I showed it on that.
Come on.
Yeah. I knew I'd done it recently. Yeah.
So what this does is it allows you to create Power Apps very quickly and very simply using existing designs. So you can actually create your content in places like Figma, PDFs, PowerPoint, paper forms, a screenshot of something you've already built, or even a picture of something you've written on a whiteboard or a notepad. It's that simple. You can build an app in seconds and create data sources for it very easily.
Your mileage may vary. No, it's very
That's the thing. For creating small proof of concepts or your MVPs, this makes it really, really easy. So you just take your image, add it, import it into the Express Designer. It then will do a run of automatic tagging your controls using custom vision and OCR to look for objects. So it'll look for like circles, squares for text input boxes, things like that, and automatically read the text to understand what's happening on the page. You then set up your data connections for those text inputs and outputs to say, here's the information that I'll be getting from this form, here's where to put it. and then that data information, once it's in Dataverse, can be used to interact with other applications. So you might have a form app and a viewer app. You can then link those two together through a Dataverse connector. And then at the end of the day, you have your app. It'll be able to make it, and I think you can even have it still showing the original image as and you can just click on it in a web page or in the Power App so it looked like you've a hand-drawn form on a page.
I love Express Design, it's really good.
Yeah, it's the demos they did at Build were actually really cool. So if you go look this up, it's really fun. And that was it. So thank you very much. That was Build in 2 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes. Wow. Please enjoy your Build swag.
That was awesome.
Oh, you've taken it. Yep.
Yeah, then we'll do it one.
Yeah, I mean, if people got 5 minutes.
Sorry about that.
I don't need more than 5 minutes. Because we covered some of this stuff already. So hang. Call your guns, Chris. Call your guns. Call your guns. Blimey.
I don't know what you're up to.
So I mean, we've spoken about your profile. We've spoken about conferences. I think we thought, how can we like rev that to say, okay, well, if you're doing some of these community things, what kind of benefits are there? What are contributions, and what can you get out of it, right? So I'll go to the next slide, please, Chris. So what does community contribution look like? So we've already mentioned volunteering. That's one thing. But the reason I've chosen these particular things, is because they are all relevant to something I'm going to get to in a minute. So, thank you. Yeah. So, a contribution could be, for instance, doing a presentation. We mentioned that, right? So a presentation could be something that you can do from a community perspective. So you think user groups, you think conferences. Hang on.
Speaking of user groups,
right? Yes, indeed. Maybe it's blog posts. Maybe you've got something that you're really passionate about. You've investigated something. I've often used blog posts not as something to contribute to the community as much as an aid memoir for me, for when I need to remember something in the future and go, I know, I wrote about that. So they're useful. They're useful for a lot of reasons, but blog posts. Maybe it's some kind of Q&A. So if you go in the old days, maybe this was tech forums or that sort of thing. Maybe it's Reddit, maybe whatever it is. That ability to then contribute back to people who are asking questions, that works both ways, right? Because if you answer a question and you've got it 50% right or whatever, then somebody will maybe correct you. And most people are fairly civil in these places. Most places have moderators to make sure that people remain civil. So it's both. It works both ways. It can be very 360 in that regard. Increasingly, maybe it's content that's video based. Maybe that's Twitch. Maybe it's something else. That ability to do short periods of very, very hard hitting technology transfer, or an hour or two, or even more. Yeah, so that ability to contribute doesn't necessarily mean a presentation. It can mean all manner of things. Writing things, writing a book, great example of contributing that reaches a huge audience potentially. Or in the case of my book, not a huge audience, which is a real shame. You've got a book? I've got a book. But again, it's one of those things that, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it necessarily because it takes a very long time. But it's one of those things that you have to research. So it's a great way of actually self-learning, because you have to research the things to make sure that what you're writing is accurate. Because editors, typically of technical books, editors aren't going in and reviewing the technical content. You'll have technical reviewers that do that, right, to make sure you're being honest. And of course, another great area of contribution is writing code. So whether that's open source software, whether that's just contributing generally to code snippets on tech forums, any of those sorts of things are great ways of both learning, but also telling people and teaching people about what your skills are. Now, why would you want to do these things? Microsoft has a couple of programs that play into these sorts of things, right? So I think that's the next one. Oh yeah, right. So one of those is the That's right. So one of these is the MVP program. So I remember many years ago when I was at Fujitsu, we had this organisation come in and go, oh, well, you know, these are the sorts of things that you can do in your career and all that sort of stuff. And they paired us up. When they paired us up, I was working with this lady who was talking about, she was much more in the marketing side of things. She wanted to do these various things. And I said, somewhat throwaway comment, oh, I want to be an MVP. And at the end of that presentation, or at the end of that, we had to present what the other person wants to be. And the guy who was the facilitator said, well, how committed are you to doing these things? And this woman said, oh, I'm 100% committed to doing this. And I said, oh, about 75%. He said, if you're 75%, you're not going to do it. And that stuck with me straight away. And I thought, oh, right. So the key thing about the MVP program is it's based on your contributions. There's no number, there's no magic number that's associated to contributions. It's not 50 or 10 or 100 or whatever. It's based on your contributions and the impact that they have. So you could do one contribute. So I got my MVP as a result of being a member of the admin team for Global Azure Bootcamp, which ran 300 events in 1 year, on one day in 1 year, and reached about 18,000 people. Right, and that was 1 day of Azure training for everybody. So that was what helped me in particular. We've got Ash there, so I'm going to get my pronouns right. They are 18 or no 21 now, 22 now, I think. There was a competition to build a fidget spinner in Power Apps.
I think that's cool.
Ash wrote a solution for that, all mathematically correct and all that sort of stuff. They were the youngest MVP ever when they were awarded, 18 years old. Right. Very, very, she's based in Perth, sorry, they're based in Perth. And if you know the Power Platform user group that Terry was supposed to reach out.
Yeah.
So Terry is Ash's mum,
Right,
and Paul
okay.
is Ash's dad. But you know, multiple contributions. But the key thing there, some stuff there, right? So the key thing about the most valuable professional is it's about technology. Right, so if you've got something you're deeply passionate about and you want to share that information, then absolutely what you should do once you've shared some of that information is reach out to the community manager or one of us or somebody else who's already an MVP and start looking at what that journey might look like to become an MVP.
I was just speaking to the MVP community yesterday on a call, in that the student ambassadors, there is a pathway from ambassador to MVP.
Oh, isn't it? Oh, that's cool.
In that if you're a gold ambassador, you are already exhibiting the behaviors that you need. You're already creating content, you're already teaching community, you're already, you know, doing stuff, running user groups and all of that. So Victor could absolutely become an MVP in his first year after graduation. But Victor is doing a PhD, and you know, PhDs, sometimes these people never graduate. But yes, and so, I asked in the MVP call for MVPs to put up their hands to mentor ambassadors, because we would like to make that pathway stronger.
So I mean, the key thing about being an MVP is it's not really about, I mean, it helps have a pathway for certain things, but quite often it's really about what you're doing in the community, and how that is recognised. So if that's recognised by other people and they can recommend you, and that touches on the bit at the bottom, the nomination process, you can either self-nominate, and that goes straight to the community program manager, which in Australia used to be a woman named Shiva, but she's moved to a different role now.
It's Elizabeth now.
It's Elizabeth now. Yeah. But all of those people, including Elizabeth right now, so if you self-nominate or you reach out to the CPMs, the community program managers, they will let you know the sorts of things you need to do, and they will actively advocate on your behalf once you start building your profile around what you do. Key thing, like I say, there are areas of focus. My background is in integration. In the old days, I'd have been an integration MVP, but when I became an MVP, I was an MVP for 6 years. It was under Azure, and there's lots and lots of areas. Content creation, presentations, and mentoring. It's based on contributions, like I say, but it's not a number. It's about impact, right? So it's not a number. Go on, Michelle.
I don't think they can self-nominate. I think they need to be nominated either by a Microsoftie or by an MVP.
Well, unless it's changed, you used to be able to self-nominate.
So do those award categories?
So I think that might have changed, right?
Do those award categories align to specific technical areas?
Ish.
Okay.
So Microsoft Azure, for instance, includes all of Azure.
Right. Okay.
Right. So if you'll have people who are infrastructure people, you'll have people who are integration people,
Gotcha.
web people, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So Azure is a real sort of cover-all,
Yep.
but data and AI is a separate one.
Right.
I think there's a new one which is Python. So
Okay.
if you're Python, you can. If you're real strong in Python, you can actually be a Python MVP now.
Amy's Azure MVP, isn't she?
And I think there's a developer category. I think
So
there's a
there's a dev tools category,
Yeah,
which is
dev
dev tools. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
Amy's dev tools. We used to have a lot more MVPs in Perth, but you can't work for Microsoft and be an MVP.
So they're all working for Microsoft now.
This is
And it's nothing to do with recruitment.
And funny story, earlier this year, we did have a new security MVP in Perth, Matt Zorich.
Yes, yeah.
Who we gave MVP to, and then 2 weeks later, he became a Microsoftie. So he literally got his welcome pack and then had to stop
Don't
being
listen
MVP.
to these people
And,
around.
and honestly,
Exactly what it's for.
because I was an MVP and I'd recommended Sergio to be an MVP because he ran the data and AI user group. I recommended him. I'd gone with Shiva through all the contributions that he did, worked with him to get it all done, and then he announced he joined Microsoft. And he couldn't tell me at the time because that was just the way it was.
I would say, though, on that topic, it isn't enough to be running communities, to be a background person in your communities, although that is tremendous contribution. You do need to create content yourselves, or you need to speak at things. Because Sabrina does an awful lot running user groups and a lot of work, and I had to start forcing her to speak at conferences because she couldn't be nominated.
It's a hard move, though, isn't it, Michelle?
It is.
For people where that's not a natural thing for you.
But there's no better way of doing it.
It's not. Yeah, it's not that hard. In that, how I did it was I said, Sergio's doing a workshop. He's looking for other people to teach that workshop with him. Why don't you teach that with him? And then you're teaching it with people you know. And Sergio was like, I'm so dumb. Why has it never occurred to me to ask Sabrina to teach with me?
It's a good point you're making, because that's a softer way of approaching it. I mean, I
worked with Shiva for 2 years to try and get Sabrina.
I always in my head have this picture of wearing a mic and you're on a stage and there's like thousands of people in front of you.
No, remember, contributions aren't just presentations.
No, I get that, and I know, but that's
Meetup,
the image I get in my head.
like
But what you just mentioned around
Meetup has a higher impact.
You could co-teach with somebody, or you could have a smaller gathering, or you could do it in that way, right?
And Gia's first conference was with me co-speaking.
Right.
And now this year she's taken my spot at DDD.
and look out for user groups to do lightning talks and things like that as well, because they're like 15 minutes, low impact. You probably only need 2 slides because you can talk for the rest of it. So there's a lot of things like that. Anyway, so just conscious of time. So yearly renewal on your MVP program. So like I said, I was one for 6 years. It used to renew every quarter. So you're on your quarter date, right? So mine was the 1st of April. Nothing to do with Fool's Day, I'm sure. But then they did it also as it was July 1st. What that means is that everybody rushes on June the 29th to get all their contributions in. So because there's a place where you log your contributions. So the key there is, if you are an MVP, do it as you go. Just like the recommendations kind of thing in LinkedIn, right? But what you'll find is that if you follow anyone on Twitter and they're an MVP, they'll on July the 2nd or 3rd, or actually it was July the 5th this year because of July the 4th fell on a Monday. So it was kind of one of those things that things didn't get done until July the 5th. People didn't know, but it's always quite anxious. It's quite an anxious time. You sense it on Twitter. People are kind of going, I think I've done enough. But if you also follow the hashtag MVP Buzz, you'll always see what's going on. But like I say, I think you're right, Michelle. They did take away the self-nomination, so I'll say that. But so MVP nomination or an RD, which I'll get to in a second. But the link there, what it takes to be an MVP, there's no hard and fast rules. Like I say, it's contribution impact is the main thing. Which leads us to the next does that change us? Which is the Uber MVPs, I guess you'd call them. So these people are called regional directors. Now the key thing there, and I've put Mandy there as well. I tried to keep it all in Perth as much as I possibly could. So Mandy still runs Fenders, the front enders user group, has done some stuff around other conferences, organised other conferences here. Is very well respected in her field in Perth. Has a lot of contributions generally. Mandy is not an MVP, but you will find that a lot of MVPs can be or do become regional directors. Now, the name regional director is really, really confusing because it sounds like you work for Microsoft, and that's been fed back many, many times, but you don't work for Microsoft. What you are is an advocate for Microsoft products.
But they do have a Microsoft email address as well.
.com. Yeah,
but
it's not rd. Right, but the key thing there really is that it's about that cross-platform thing. So they don't want people who only know Microsoft technologies because that's of no use to them. What they want is people who maybe know AWS, know GCP, or in Mandy's case, she knows a lot of web technologies that don't necessarily fit just inside the sphere of Microsoft. With the view being that if you have that, then when you see signals in the marketplace, you can react to those signals. And Microsoft actually do reserve the right to get an RD into a room with a business and say, can you please go in there and start talking about, not just Microsoft stuff, but how your expertise and everything fits into the Microsoft landscape and everything else. So whilst you're not working for Microsoft, they do kind of parachute you in sometimes. So there's that side thing. Very much business focus, much less about technology. So it's much more sort of, the idea behind the regional directors is, well, the idea behind the MVPs is they're talking at conferences and all that sort of thing. Regional directors would as well, but they'll be keynote speakers. They'll also be the people who can walk into a boardroom and talk straight to a CIO. So it's those kind of levels of people. So it's an aspirational role, I guess. So I was an RD for 2 years. It's every 2 years, it says there, by yearly renewal. So I joined actually just before my renewal, because I don't think I've been gone for another year. And it's based on a re-evaluation. So it's not about contributions. You have to fill in a huge form about what you've done, how you've influenced, and all that sort of thing. And as I say, they're rigorous evaluation. So it's not contributions, it's how you've influenced people, what kind of conversations you've had, who your network is. As much as anything else, it's about who your network is. So, because that extends Microsoft's reach through their regional director program to a lot of other people. Right? So it's kind of like an aspirational thing, I suppose, to some degree. I think anybody can become an MVP. I genuinely do. It's about how engaged you are in your community. The regional director program is a little bit harder in terms of anything else. But again, the thing to do there is reach out to a regional director. And if you go to rd.microsoft.com, you can see all the people. And there's a bunch of RDs in Australia. I think it's like 20 RDs in Australia. Or talk to me because I used to be one. If you're interested in that kind of program, just reach out. And, either to one of the RDs or me, or in fact the community program manager who looks after the MVPs also looks after the RDs. So going from what we said, your profile in terms of LinkedIn and how that represents you as something, conferences and how you may get engaged in that, and then what you might want to do in terms of going forwards if you do start doing all those community contributions and what that can bring to bear. And so MVPs also get an Azure subscription, a bunch of other stuff. There's a bunch of free software, for instance, that you get. So there's a bunch of things that you get as a result of being an MVP. So it's a really, really good program. And again, any interest in those particular programs, just have a word.
Cool.
That's it. I think what's next? The end, Q&A.
Any questions in the chat? Nope. All right.
I am going to fail because
You got dinner.
You go.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you.
I think we're done.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Martin.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for coming in, everybody, and thanks for everybody online.
Thanks, guys. It was very interesting.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks, Keegan.